If you know anything about the NFL, you probably know that two of its teams are the Minnesota Vikings and Arizona Cardinals. These two teams have not won a Super Bowl despite 5 combined appearances and boasting legendary receiving talent. But in the final week of the 2003 regular season, these two teams gave us one of the most memorable endings in football history, an ending so shocking and so cataclysmic that it affected the future of football as we know it. The Vikings came out of the gates that season with a viciously hot start, winning all of their first 6 games. They weren't just scooching by these games either, they were winning them by multiple scores, holding the second best point differential through 7 weeks. The offense exploded thanks to a passing game that ranked first in touchdown passes and the combination of Dante Culpepper and otherworldly Super Saiyan receiver Randy Moss. The defense at the time was second in takeaways, 7th in sacks, and first in picks, largely due to safeties Brian Russell and Corey Chavis combining for 17 interceptions. Pass rushers Kevin Williams and Lance Johnstone both ended up with double-digit sacks as well. At the end of the season, the Vikings were the only offense to total at least 6,000 yards, so things had to have run smoothly for them, right? Except, after that 6-0 start, a systemic collapse shocked the organization. The team only won 3 of their next 9 games, forcing them into a win-and-in scenario where they, get this, had to win their last game in order to take the NFC North division. The Cardinals, on the other hand, had 0 plans for the postseason. It wasn't even close. That year's team became one of 4 since 1970 to rank dead last in both scoring offense and scoring defense. They were easily the worst team in the league that year when it came to point differential. Every other team at least had a point differential above negative 144. The Cardinals had minus 227. The sad part is that's only the second worst in the franchise's history, beat by the 2000 squad. It didn't have to be this way though. The team started out 3-5, mediocre as fuck, but definitely not the worst team in the league by record. Then a 7-game losing streak hit, one that actually brought some good news. With just one more loss, the Cardinals would hold the league's worst record, which would in turn give them the number 1 pick in the 2004 draft. Just one more loss would secure the ultimate tank. The Vikings were on an absolute free fall, but they were also a 7.5 road favorite in this dire matchup. If successful, this would be a win that would benefit both teams. The Cardinals got off to a 6-0 lead from 2 field goals, but until late in the 4th quarter, this would be all they'd get. The Vikings used that opportunity to score 17 unanswered points. With a successful field goal that doinked off the left upright and through, a win seemed to be assured for Minnesota. But with less than 7 minutes left, The Cardinals responded with a drive that included 3 third/4th down conversions. The first came to the forever underrated Anquan Boldin, who had one of the greatest rookie seasons from a wide receiver that year, on a play that just barely moved the chains. Just before the second clutch conversion, the Vikings defense botched a 2nd and 21 with a defensive holding penalty, resulting in an automatic first down. On a 3rd and 12, the Vikings defense gave Arizona free yardage on a conversion from receiver Nate Poole, making the best catch of his life. For now. Eventually, the Cardinals faced a 4th and 1 from the 2-yard line. Minnesota just needed one stop to secure the NFC North. One stop. What happened instead was a beautiful play extension from McCown that ended in the hands of tight end Steve Bush for the only touchdown of his 2003 season. A botched 2-point conversion kept the score at 17-12, but it didn't matter anyway, since the Cardinals would need to recover an onside kick to keep their hopes of winning this game alive. So the Vikings can safely secure the onside kick and completely fuck it up. Arizona back Damian Anderson somehow recovered the onside kick, and his team had new life. This was a brand new goddamn ballgame. That new life allowed the Cardinals to travel to the Vikings 13, but 2 consecutive sacks had them facing a 4th and 25 from the Vikings 28. With no timeouts left, the Cardinals had to hustle. They couldn't spike the ball because that would result in a turnover on downs. They'd get the snap off with 4 seconds left, but they would also need to throw it to the end zone and pray to the Lord. It's time you met Josh McCown. McCown's journey started in college with the SMU Mustangs, an organization he played with for 3 years. Until he decided he was tired of losing and throwing so little that he transferred over to Sam Houston State, where the Bearcats with a K went 10-3 behind McCown's incredible season of passing. McCown further impressed scouts after filling in for an injured Joey Harrington in the Senior Bowl, improving his draft stock. Then, in the 2002 draft, the Cardinals made McCown the 81st pick. He only made 2 appearances in his rookie season, but would start the final 3 games of the 2003 season, including this one, to see if he was a quarterback worth investing in for the future. Now let's head back to this game, where a 4th and 25 is about to happen. In this game, McCown had taken 8 sacks, including the previous 2 plays. He was getting absolutely ass-blasted, and hope for a win looked bleak. Now, 2 outcomes are on the line: the number 1 pick in the draft, and the NFC North title. If the Vikings hang on, the title is theirs. But if they were to somehow lose, the Packers, needing a win and Vikings loss, would secure the division. What is about to happen will change the outcome of not just these 2 teams, but the entire NFL for a long, long, long time. Fucking send it, Josh. Cardinals did the impossible. Not only did they eliminate the Vikings from playoff contention and allow the Packers to secure the NFC North, but they completely fucked their own tank and surrendered control of the #1 overall pick. As a result, the Vikings became the first team to miss the playoffs after starting 6-0, and it was all McCown's fault. Josh McCown is a war criminal. Now, I could end the video here. What more can be described, right? The Vikings choked, the Cardinals won, and the Packers made the playoffs instead. But that's not fun for me. Besides, the impact this play had on the NFL goes well beyond these scenarios. It's time to truly understand why McCown changed the outcome of the NFL's future for the next 2 decades. First, the Cardinals dropped to the 3rd pick in the draft despite finishing with the same record as the Chargers and Raiders. With the 1st pick, the Chargers selected Ole Miss QB Eli Manning, who said "fuck you" to the Chargers and immediately went to the Giants in exchange for Phillip Rivers in an already planned trade. The Raiders, 2nd overall, selected tackle Robert Gallery, who lasted in the NFL for quite a while despite not being a household name. At 3rd, the Cardinals drafted Larry fucking Fitzgerald. The Pitt receiver soon became the franchise's greatest player, so it certainly benefited the team in the long haul. But if they had the #1 pick, would they have been tempted to select Eli Manning? Well, head coach Dennis Green had Fitzgerald at the top of his draft board anyway, but we can't rule out owner Bill Bidwell potentially interfering and suggesting otherwise. Either way, we never found out who this team truly wanted with the #1 pick, because they never had it. Eventually, McCown would be a backup to 2-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP, and future Hall of Famer Kurt Warner, who the Cardinals signed in 2005. After years of dealing with a lack of comfort in his throwing hand due to injuries, Warner would finally put it all together in 2008, returning to glory and leading the Cardinals to back-to-back playoff appearances, of which included a Super Bowl appearance. See that? Josh McCown, with the exaggerated power of the butterfly effect, got the Cardinals Kurt Warner. That may not have happened if Arizona lost to the Vikings. Believe it or not, the Packers, Seahawks, and Eagles were all affected by the McCown touchdown too. With the division clinch, the Packers got to host the Seahawks in the wild card round in a game that went to overtime. You might remember this game for the moment where Seattle quarterback Matt Hasselbeck infamously said, "We want the ball and we're going to score," when his team won the coin toss to decide first possession. On the Seahawks' 2nd possession of this period, Hasselbeck's team did score. His old team. Hasselbeck's career in Green Bay was as a backup to Brett Favre, but even so, losing to the team you started your career with on a pick 6 you made has to give you air sickness. Now, I raise a question. Would the Vikings have lost this game if they played? I don't know. The Packers had a better defense that year than the Vikings, especially following a 3-4 start where the team improved and landed in the top 5 in points allowed in the second half of the season. Combine that with the Vikings imploding all over the turf after a 6-0 start, and a potential outcome could have been in Seattle's favor. Then there's the divisional round where the Packers and Eagles faced off. You might think I'm getting off track with something that might not even be related to the Josh McCown play, and you might be right. So let's talk about this game. This is the game where the famous 4th and 26 conversion from the Eagles occurred. Yes, a 4th and 26. Philly would later tie the game up and, after Brett Favre threw the dumbest interception I have ever seen, won this thriller in overtime, heading to their 3rd consecutive NFC Championship game. Perhaps this 3rd consecutive appearance and subsequent loss to the Panthers was enough to push the front office into going after legendary demigod receiver Terrell Owens. Probably not. They would have gone after him anyway. Perhaps if the Cardinals never drafted Fitzgerald, they would have felt compelled to keep Anquan Boldin instead of trading him to the Ravens, where he won a Super Bowl in 2012 after putting up one of the all-time greatest individual postseasons from a receiver. Yeah, now I'm getting really off track it seems, but okay. Here's my point. Two of the most exciting overtime finishes in NFL history may not have occurred if not for Josh McCown. The Giants may not have two Super Bowls in the most bullshit way imaginable if the McCown throw didn't gift them Eli Manning. The Chargers would also have Phillip Rivers guide them to many playoff appearances and also lose in the funniest ways possible. There's no way to know if other teams would accept the Giants' offer for the quarterback they wanted if the Cardinals had the #1 pick and gobbled one of the QBs up or selected Fitzgerald there after all. There's no way of knowing. Drew Brees might not have the 2004 season he had if not for the Chargers drafting Phillip Rivers, which in turn lit a fire under Brees and allowed him to finally thrive and start a Hall of Fame career, one he would fully realize with the Saints. It is entirely possible that Josh McCown, by himself, by switching colleges and developing to the point where he was a third-round pick, gave the Cardinals Larry Fitzgerald and Kurt Warner, the Giants Eli Manning, the Chargers Phillip Rivers, the Raiders an offensive tackle, the Ravens Anquan Boldin, the Vikings a brutal ending to an all-time choke that resulted in one of the greatest NFL radio calls ever.
Touchdown! No! No! The Cardinals have knocked the Vikings out of the playoffs!
The Packers a playoff spot and a thrilling overtime win, which in turn led to a thrilling overtime loss, quite possibly gave Drew Brees to the Saints, and finally, allowed the Packers to give Nate Poole the key to the city of Green Bay and also invite him to the game against the Seahawks. Holy shit, that's a lot of food to swallow with no drink. Listen, if you're not buying most of this and think this is absolute bullshit, I don't blame you. I am really stretching this to try and make the video interesting. But is it working? I hope so. I would hate for my viewers to get bored. Anyway, without this 4th and 25 miracle from Josh McCown to Nate Poole, it's a possibility that none of the events I just listed would come to reality. Josh McCown changed the future of multiple franchises he wasn't even involved with, all with just one play in just one game. That bastard.